The silence of space near Pluto was not a peaceful one. It was the silence of emptiness, of cold, of things too far apart to matter. That silence was broken. It was torn apart by a shriek of twisted light and violent energy that was not natural. It was the sound of something arriving. A ship appeared. It was massive, larger than any human station. It was made of dark metal that seemed to swallow the light from the distant sun. Its shape was sharp, like a knife, and it moved with a purpose that felt like a threat. This was the vanguard of the Galactic Empire. On Earth, in a quiet office in Seoul, a man named Jin watched the data come in. He was a diplomat. His job was to talk, to find common ground, to build bridges between different peoples. He looked at the screen, his face calm. But his hands, resting on his desk, were very still. The sensors on the Pluto research outpost, called Hope Station, were sending frantic readings. Then they sent a visual. The alien ship filled the screen. A message arrived. It did not ask for permission. It did not ask for a leader. It simply began to play on every major network, on every screen, in every language on Earth. A figure appeared. It was humanoid, but not human. Its skin was a pale gray, its eyes large and black. It wore a uniform of sleek black material with sharp silver lines. It spoke. Its voice was translated by its own systems into flat, perfect English. People of the planet you call Earth, I am Emissary Vorlak of the Galactic Empire. Your system lies within the boundaries of imperial expansion. Your civilization is classified as pre-contact Tier 2. You are hereby given an ultimatum. You will surrender your planet, your infrastructure, and your populations to imperial governance. You have one standard galactic cycle, 72 of your hours. Compliance will be met with orderly integration. Resistance will be met with total annihilation. There will be no further communication. The mercy of the Empire is found in its efficiency. The message ended. The screen went black. For a moment, all of Earth was silent too. Then the noise began. Panic, fear, shouting, crying. In the streets of every city, people looked up at the sky as if they could see the threat. Jin did not panic. He took a deep breath. He had a job to do. The world leaders, now part of a single emergency council, called him. Jin, the president said, her voice tight with stress. You are our best. Make contact. Talk to them. There must be a misunderstanding. There must be something they want besides surrender. Jin nodded. He had a friend, a brilliant woman named Mira. She was an astrophysicist. She was also on Hope Station at Pluto. They had worked together for years, trying to listen for signs of life in the universe. Now it had found them. He sent her a quick private text. Be careful. We are trying to talk. Her reply was fast. They are not listening, Jin. Their ship. It radiates hostility. It is like a weapon just by being there. Jin and his team worked for hours. They used every method they could think of. They sent messages of peace. They sent mathematical greetings. They offered cultural exchanges. They asked for a meeting, any meeting, to discuss terms. They received nothing. Only silence from the dark ship near Pluto. Then, with 10 minutes left in the first Earth day, a new message came. This one was not for the public. It was for the council. The gray face of Emissary Vorlak appeared on Jin's secure screen. You are the speaker for this world? Vorlak asked, its voice devoid of any feeling. I am Jin. I speak for Earth. We have received your ultimatum. We wish to discuss it. We are a peaceful species. We desire friendship, not conflict. Please, let us meet. Let us find a path that does not end in destruction. Vorlak's black eyes seemed to stare through the screen. Discussion is irrelevant. Your desires are irrelevant. You have two choices. Surrender or be erased. This is the only path. Your peace is a weakness. The Empire does not discuss with weakness. It consumes it. Please, Jin said, keeping his voice steady. There are families on our outpost near you. Scientists. They mean no harm. Let this be a starting point for trust. For the first time, something like an emotion flickered on Vorlak's face. It was not compassion. It was contempt, a slight curl of its thin lip. Your outpost? You mean the insignificant cluster of metal in this system's frozen waste? Very well. Let this be your final lesson in the reality of the galaxy. The screen split. On one side was Vorlak's face. On the other was a live feed from Hope Station. Jin could see the familiar corridors, the labs. He saw Mira in the background, her face pale, looking at a monitor. She saw him on her screen. Her eyes widened. No, Jin whispered. Vorlak spoke a single word in its own language. On the feed, a blinding purple light erupted from the dark Imperial ship. It was a beam of pure energy. It lanced across the space between the ship and Pluto. It did not strike the station immediately. It played across the surface of the small planet, melting ice and rock in an instant. Then, with casual precision, it swept upwards. It touched Hope Station. There was no explosion. There was a flash of white light. Then, the station was simply gone, vaporized. The metal, the labs, the people. Myra. Everything. Gone as if it had never existed. The feed from Pluto went dead, showing only static. Jin stared at the static. The world in his office was silent. He could hear his own heart beating. He could see Myra's face in the second before the light took her. He could feel the cold weight of the emissary's gaze. Your time continues to count down, Vorlak said, its voice unchanged. The Empire shows no mercy. Your choice is simple. Become useful or become nothing. The transmission ended. Jin did not move for a long time. The horror of what he had seen was a cold stone in his stomach. The death of his friend. The death of thousands. Not in a battle. Not in a war. But as a demonstration. A casual flick of power to make a point. They had asked for no terms. They had listened to no arguments. They had shown no hint of understanding or compassion. Mercy was not in their nature. It was not a concept they understood. They were a force of pure, cold will. The stone in Jin's stomach began to change. The cold horror began to burn. It was a slow burn, deep and dangerous. It was not just grief. It was anger. A profound, righteous anger. He had come to them with words of peace. They had answered with the murder of innocence. He stood up. His body felt different, tighter, stronger. He walked to the window and looked out at the city. The panic was still there, but he saw something else now. He saw people hugging. He saw others standing straight, their faces set. He saw a defiance growing in the eyes of those who looked at the sky. They had shown Earth no mercy. They had made it personal for him. They had made it personal for everyone who saw the feed, for everyone who knew someone on that station. Jin turned from the window. He activated his comlink to the Global Council. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet, but it was no longer the voice of a man looking for a compromise. It was the voice of a man who had seen the true face of the enemy. They are not here to negotiate, Jin said. They are here to erase us. They have shown us what they are. Now we must show them what we are. We must show them our answer. The council was silent. Then a new voice came on the line. It was an older voice, rough and full of gravel. It was General Tay, retired but never forgotten. The diplomat is right, Tay said. They have thrown the first stone. A stone that killed our children. Now we pick up the mountain. Let us begin. The shock wave from Pluto did not just travel through space. It traveled through the heart of every person on Earth. The images were unavoidable. One moment, Hope Station was there, a tiny light in the dark. The next, it was gone. The Empire's message was clear. They were not conquerors who wanted slaves or tribute. They were cleaners. They would sweep humanity away like dust if it stood in their path. For a few hours, the world teetered on the edge of chaos. There were riots in some cities. There were people rushing to the countryside. There were cries of despair on every news channel. But then something changed. It started in small ways. In Seoul, a young woman named Yoon stood in her apartment looking at the panic on the street below. She was an engineer. She built things. She solved problems. Fear was a problem. She put on her coat, walked down to the street, and began directing traffic. She spoke calmly. She helped the lost child. Others saw her. They stopped running. They began to help. This happened everywhere. In town squares, on communication networks, in homes. The shared grief for the lost at Pluto became a shared purpose. The feeling was this: they could kill us, but they will not make us kneel. The different nations of Earth, with all their old arguments, put them aside. They had no choice. The Emergency Earth Directorate was formed in a hidden bunker complex deep under the Alps. Its leader was not a politician. The world's leaders chose General Tae. Tae was an old man. His hair was gray and cut short. His face was lined from a long life of service. He had retired years ago to a small house by a lake. He was brought to the bunker. He did not want the job. He looked at the faces of the men and women in the room. He saw their fear. He also saw a spark of anger. He thought of his own grandson. He thought of the world his grandson would inherit, or not inherit. They have given us 72 hours, a European minister said, her voice shaking. Our combined militaries are like toys compared to that ship. Our nuclear weapons would not even scratch its hull. What do we do, General? Do we surrender to save lives? Tae was quiet for a long time. He looked at a screen showing the dark Imperial ship, now moving slowly inward from Pluto. It was in no hurry. It was sure of itself. No, Tae said finally. His voice was low, but it filled the room. Surrender does not save lives. It only changes how we die. They do not want us as servants. They want our planet empty. They showed us that. They showed no mercy. So we must show them no fear. But how do we fight that? Another leader asked, pointing at the screen. We do not fight their fight, Tae said. He stood up. They are big. They are strong. They expect us to be small and weak. We will be small, and we will be sharp. We will be a needle, not a hammer. He knew he needed the best minds, not just soldiers. He called for Un, the engineer from Seoul, whose calm under pressure was now famous. She arrived, looking tired but focused. He put her in charge of all planetary engineering and logistics. Make everything into a weapon, he told her. Not just guns, everything. Our cities, our satellites, our garbage. Think in ways they will not expect. He also called for Jin. The diplomat arrived. He looked older. The grief for his friend, Mira, was a shadow in his eyes. But the shadow was not of sadness anymore. It was of a cold, hard resolve. Jin, you know them, Tae said. You looked into its eyes. What did you see? Jin did not hesitate. I saw arrogance. It did not see me as a person. It saw me as a thing that was talking when it should be silent. It sees all of us that way. They are not just evil. They are Borg. They have done this so many times. They follow a script. They expect us to follow it too. Tae nodded. Good. Then we will throw away their script. The next 72 hours were a blur of activity the world had never seen. Factories that made cars started making armored vehicles. Smartphone factories started making parts for communication jammers. Video game companies used their best programmers to write aggressive computer viruses. Social media networks became tools for organizing work crews. Yoon's plan was the most daring. It was called Operation Gwangbok. It meant restoration. She did not plan to build giant spaceships. She looked at the solar system's greatest resource, rocks, asteroids. She had a team of miners and pilots, the best in the world, who were used to working in the asteroid belt. They were given a simple, terrifying mission. Take hundreds of large asteroids. Fit them with simple, powerful thrusters. Load them with every nuclear warhead Earth had, not to explode on impact, but to be turned into massive X-ray laser bombs. Position them, not near Earth, but out in the dark between Mars and Jupiter. Hide them. Make them look like natural debris. It is a minefield, she explained to Tae, but a smart one. They will not see it as a threat. Their sensors will look for ships, for energy weapons. They will ignore simple rocks. At the same time, Jin and a team of linguists and computer scientists worked on a different weapon. They studied every second of the Imperial transmissions. They analyzed the data traffic from the ship. They found patterns. Their systems were advanced, but they were also uniform. They all talked to each other in the same way, like an army that only knew one drill. They are connected, Jin said. Their ships are like limbs of one body. If we can hack one, we can confuse all of them. We can make that strength into a weakness. They created a digital weapon, a set of malicious codes designed to do one thing: cause chaos. It would tell life support systems to turn off. It would make gravity generators flip on and off. It would make navigation computers see enemies that were not there. They loaded this virus into thousands of small, fast drones. Tae looked over all the plans. He saw the scale of it. The entire human race was now one factory, one army, one mind. They were not ready to win a war, but they were ready to make a war so costly, so shocking, that the Empire might reconsider. With 6 hours left before the deadline, Tae spoke to the world. He did not appear in a fancy uniform. He appeared in a simple gray shirt, in a room with plain walls. He looked directly into the camera. "People of Earth," he said, "the Empire has given us an ultimatum. They have shown us their power. They have shown us their cruelty. They expect us to be afraid. They are right. We are afraid. But we are something else too. We are angry. We are united. And we are clever." He paused, letting his words sink in. "They believe mercy is a weakness. They are wrong. Mercy is a strength they do not have. And because they do not have it, they cannot understand what they have awakened. They cannot understand that a parent will fight harder than a soldier, that a builder will defend their home with more passion than a conqueror can ever have. They have shown us no mercy. So we will show them no quarter. We will show them the unmatched wrath of a world that chooses to fight for its right to exist." He ended the speech. There was no cheering on the streets. There was a quiet determination. People went back to work. Soldiers took their positions. Pilots got into their crafts. Families hugged, not knowing if it was for the last time got in the command bunker. Tae looked at the main screen. The Imperial ship was now near the orbit of Uranus. It was coming. It was time. "All units stand by for Operation Gwangbok," Tae said, his voice calm. "The trap is set. Let us see if the lion is as smart as it thinks it is." He turned to Jin. "Your friend, Mara. She was a scientist. What would she say now?" Jin looked at the screen, at the dot representing the enemy. "She would say they made a fundamental error. They broke the first rule of science. They did not respect their subject. He turned to Tay, his eyes clear and cold. Now we get to show them the consequences. The Imperial Armada arrived at Mars, not with a roar, but with a silent, majestic dread. It was a fleet of 27 ships, each one a polished spear of dark metal reflecting the distant sun. At its heart was the command ship, the Talon of Supreme Justice. On its bridge stood Admiral Korvax. He looked at the rust-colored planet below with disinterest. His target was the blue-green world further in. His sensors had picked up a frantic concentration of human activity in the space around Mars. Small, primitive vessels buzzed around the planet's 2 small moons. Energy readings spiked from the surface of Mars itself. To Korvax, it was obvious. The humans were making their pathetic last stand here, trying to keep the fight away from their homeworld. It was a predictable, sentimental move. He felt a wave of contempt. They were like insects, swarming to defend their hill. "Report," Korvax said, his voice like dry stones rubbing together. A junior officer answered. "The human forces are gathered around the 4th planet. Their largest vessels are comparable to our smallest scouts. Energy signatures suggest primitive fission and fusion warheads. No shield technology detected. No hyperspace traces. They are broadcasting defiant messages on all frequencies." Korvax allowed himself a thin smile. Defiance, the last gasp of a dying race. "Open a channel to their lead vessel," he ordered. "Let us give them one final chance to understand their place." On Earth, in the buried command center, General Tay watched the main screen. The view was from a hidden probe near Phobos, one of Mars's moons. He saw the perfect, terrifying formation of the Imperial fleet. He saw them come to a stop, confident and unmoving. They took the bait. Tay said quietly docked next to him. Yoon watched her own screens. Her fingers flew over a console. "All Guangbok units are in position. The rocks are silent. The drones are ready. The virus is loaded." Jin stood a few steps behind them, his arms crossed. He watched the face of Admiral Korvax appear on the main screen. The Admiral looked even more severe than the emissary had. "People of Earth," Korvax began, his translated voice dripping with cold superiority. "Your attempted defiance at this minor outpost is noted. It is also futile. You have squandered your final hours building toys. Look upon the might of the Galactic Empire and know true power. This is your last opportunity. Disband these pitiful forces. Surrender now, or witness the complete eradication of your military capacity before we cleanse your homeworld." On the screen, a visual from the human fleet appeared. It was a live feed from the bridge of the Odyssey, Earth's largest ship. It was commanded by a brave pilot named Lee. Lee stared into the camera, his face set. "We do not recognize your authority," Lee said, his voice strong. "This is our home. We will defend it." Korvax sighed, a sound of pure boredom. "So be it. All forward batteries. Eliminate the human vessels. Leave nothing but dust." The Imperial ships glowed with a baleful purple light along their sides. Energy gathered. On the Odyssey, Lee gave one last look at the camera, a look that was not of fear, but of grim satisfaction. Then he cut the feed. The Imperial weapons fired. Dozens of purple lances of energy shot across the space toward the human ships near Mars. The human ships tried to evade. Some were slow. They were hit. They did not explode dramatically. They shattered. They came apart into silent, glittering fragments of metal and ice. It was a slaughter. Admiral Korvax watched. It was too easy. Something felt wrong. The humans were brave, but their tactics were childish. Why would they throw away their biggest? Ships in a direct fight? His tactical officer spoke up, a note of confusion in his voice. "Admiral, We are detecting minimal life signs on the target vessels. And the debris patterns are wrong. The metal composition is too simple. These are not warships. They are hulls. Empty shells with basic reactors and transmitters. Korvax's eyes widened slightly. A shell game? A distraction? Scan the area. Full active sweep. Now. It was too late. From her station on Titan, Yoon pressed a single physical key. It was red. It was under a clear guard. She flipped the guard and pressed it. "Guangbok is live," she said, her voice flat. Out in the dark space between Mars and Jupiter, hundreds of asteroids that had been drifting slowly for days suddenly changed. Small, powerful thrusters flared to life, not to move the rocks far, but to spin them, to point them. They oriented toward the Imperial fleet like 1,000 dumb eyes opening. Inside each asteroid, a simple computer received Yoon's signal. It triggered a sequence. A nuclear warhead at the core of the rock detonated, but the energy was not released outward. It was channeled. It was focused through a long, thick barrel of carved rock and lined with common steel, turning the entire asteroid into a single-shot cannon. The nuclear energy became a concentrated beam of X-rays, a laser of unimaginable power. For one fleeting second dot to the Imperial fleet, it looked like the space around them suddenly sprouted a forest of deadly light. 1,000 brilliant searing lances stabbed out from seemingly empty space. These were not precise beams. They were crude, savage tools of destruction. They struck shields. The Imperial shields were designed for directed energy weapons from ships, not for massive, brute force X-ray pulses from all sides at once. Shields flared white and failed. Hulls were punctured. The talon of supreme justice shuddered as 3 beams tore into its port side, melting armor and exposing decks to the vacuum of space. Alarms screamed on every Imperial ship. Evasive pattern. Korvax yelled, grabbing his console as the deck tilted. Return fire on those asteroids. But as his gunners tried to target the rocks, the second phase began. From behind the moons of Mars, from the dark side of asteroids, thousands of small, fast drones erupted. They were not armed with lasers. They were armed with data spikes and Jin's computer virus. They flew like suicidal insects toward the damaged, confused Imperial ships. Their only goal was to make physical contact and deliver their digital payload. Many were shot down, vaporized by point defense lasers. But hundreds got through. They slammed into hulls, drilling for a second before attaching. Their packages uploaded dot on the Imperial ships. Chaos went digital. A gravity generator on one ship suddenly reversed, slamming crew members into the ceiling. Life support on another ship shut off, freezing the air. A navigation computer on a third ship decided the ship next to it was an enemy and fired its own weapons at its ally. The neat, perfect formation of the Empire dissolved into a chaotic, flashing mess of friendly fire and system failures. Admiral Korvax stared at his screens in disbelief. His mighty armada was being torn apart by rocks and computer tricks. His ships were bleeding atmosphere and fire. He could hear the panicked shouts of his crew over the sound of tearing metal. This was not war. This was a trap. A dirty, dishonorable, brilliant trap. On Earth, the command bunker was silent for a moment. Then a cheer started, but Tay held up his hand. "It is not over," he said. "We have bloodied them. Now we must show them the consequence." He opened a channel, broadcasting on the same frequency Korvax had used. On the main screen, the view switched to Tay's calm, lined face. Behind him, Jin stood, a silent, vengeful shadow. "Admiral Korvax," Tay said, his voice quiet but clear. "You came to our home showing no mercy. You destroyed a station of scientists. You expected us to fight your war. We do not fight your war. We fight our war. On the bridge of the damaged Talon, Korvax looked up at the image of the old human. Rage filled him. You primitive animal. You think this trickery changes anything? The Empire will send another fleet. 1,000 fleets. We will burn your world to cinders. Tay nodded slowly. Perhaps. But first, you will deliver a message for us. Tell your Empire what happens when you show Earth no mercy. Tell them of the wrath you found in the dark. Tell them the cost of our home is higher than they can ever afford. He nodded to Yoon. She entered another command, the remaining functional. Asteroids and every human drone still alive activated their self-destruct sequences. They did not explode outward. They turned their remaining power inward, overloading their engines and energy cores in a final, simultaneous act of defiance. Space around the Imperial fleet flashed with 100 more small suns. The shock waves finished what the lasers had started, battering the already broken ships. The transmission from Earth ended, leaving Admiral Korvax alone on his broken bridge, surrounded by the wreckage of his pride and his fleet, staring at the silent, unforgiving stars. The lesson had been delivered. The silence in the Imperial Command Center was heavier than the darkness of space. Admiral Korvax stood before the Grand Strategist's hologram, a towering figure of pale blue light. Korvax's uniform was torn. A burn mark scarred the side of his face. He reported the disaster at Mars, the loss of ships, the humans' crude, effective traps, the dishonorable tactics. The Grand Strategist listened. His expression did not change. When Korvax finished, the silence stretched. You were defeated by rocks and computer code, the Grand Strategist said, his voice a soft, dangerous whisper. They are unpredictable. Savage, Korvax argued, a hint of desperation in his tone. They do not fight with honor. Honor is a luxury for the strong, the strategist replied coldly. It seems we underestimated their viciousness. A correction is required. Dispatch the 2nd and 3rd pacification fleets to the Sol system. They are to enact the glassing protocol. Reduce every planet, every moon, every rock to molten slag. Leave nothing. Not a microbe. Let this be a lesson to the next civilization that considers defiance. The order was given. The Empire's response was not just a military action. It was an act of cosmic cleaning. They would erase the human problem completely. On Earth, the mood was not of victory, but of grim tension. They had won a battle, not the war. General Tai knew this. In the bunker, he looked at the strategic map. Knew larger signals were gathering at the edge of their detection range, far beyond Pluto. They are coming back, Jin said, standing beside him. And they will not make the same mistake twice. They will not get close. They will stand off and burn our world from a distance. Tay nodded. Then we must not be here when they arrive. Yoon looked up from her console, her eyes tired but sharp. The reverse engineering teams have made a breakthrough. From the wreckage at Mars, we recovered 3 intact drive cores from their smaller ships. We understand the principle. It is not faster than light travel as we imagined. It is a fold, a shortcut. Can we build one? Tay asked. We have built one, Yoon corrected. A single drive. It is unstable. It uses too much power. The math says a ship using it might not survive the jump. It is a one-way trip, most likely. A new voice entered the conversation. It was Captain Hana. She had been piloting one of the drone command ships during the Mars battle. She was young, with a calm face and eyes that had seen too much too quickly. She walked into the command center, her flight suit still smudged with soot. Then give the one-way trip to me, she said. Everyone looked at her. Tay studied her face. What is your plan, Captain? Hannah stepped to the map. They think we are trapped here, waiting to die. They think all we can do is defend. So we will not defend. She pointed a finger not at the incoming fleets, but at a star system far away, a system identified from captured Imperial databanks. We attack. The room was silent. Jin leaned forward. Attack what? Their heart, Hannah said. Not their military. Their industry. The source of their strength. She tapped a specific point. Empire Foundry World Gamma 7. Every report says it is the primary factory for their warships. It is where their fleets are born. It is heavily defended, but its defenses face outward. They will never expect an attack from a species that has no ships, from a direction they think is impossible. Tay understood immediately. It was not just a strike. It was a message. A statement. You would be going to your death, he said to Hannah. Hannah met his gaze. Admiral Korvax said they would burn our world to cinders. I believe him. So let us show them the price of a cinder. Let us show them that for every one they make, we will make one of theirs. My life and the lives of my crew for that equation. It is a good trade. The plan was called Operation Jiangso, meaning funeral pyre. They had one heavy cargo ship, the Chunshin, which had been meant for asteroid mining. It was ugly and slow. They stripped it of everything non-essential. They fitted the unstable Imperial drive core into its belly. They packed its vast holds, not with minerals, but with every remaining nuclear warhead, every gram of explosive chemical, and most crucially, the cores of the other two recovered Imperial drives. Yoon's theory was simple. If one drive could make a fold, 3 overloading together could make a much bigger hole. They were not going to fight the guards at Gamma 7. They were going to become a bomb that would tear the planet's factory core apart from the inside. Volunteers were called for. Every pilot, every soldier wanted to go. Hannah chose a crew of 99. They were given one night to say goodbye. There were no grand ceremonies. There were quiet words, recorded messages, and tight hugs under artificial lights as the new Imperial fleets began their final approach to the Sol system. The Chunshin sat anchored to the dark side of Jupiter. The giant planet's gravity would help with the slingshot, the impossible angle for the jump. On the bridge, Hannah looked at her crew on the monitors. She saw no fear. She saw resolve. She opened a channel to Earth Command. We are ready, she said. Tay's face appeared on her screen. Behind him stood Jin and Yoon. Captain Hannah, Tay said, you carry the wrath of every soul on Earth. You carry the memory of Hope Station. You do not go with our sadness, but with our pride. Make it count, Hannah saluted. We will. For Mara, for everyone. She closed the channel. Helm, initiate the Jupiter slingshot. Maximum thrust. The Chunshin, a bulky, misshapen vessel, fired its engines. It dove toward the swirling clouds of Jupiter, using the monster planet's gravity to whip it around and fling it out on a precise, calculated trajectory. The stress groaned through the ship's frame. Drive is charged and unstable, her engineer called out. The foreign cores are resonating. We cannot hold this for long. We do not need long, Hannah said, her hand steady on her chair. On my mark, 3, 2, 1. Engage. The engineer activated the fold drive. From the outside, it looked like the ship was stretched into a line of light and snapped out of existence. Inside, it was hell. The lights went out. Gravity disappeared. A screaming noise filled everyone's ears, a sound that was not sound. Metal shrieked. Several crew members blacked out. Then it was over. They fell into normal space with a crash that threw everyone against their restraints. The view on the main screen was not stars. It was the massive, glowing orb of Foundry World Gamma 7. It was a planet covered in metallic structures, glowing furnaces, and orbiting shipyards. Huge Imperial battleships, under construction, hung in the space around it like unfinished skeletons. Defense platforms, looking outward, began to slowly turn inward, confused by this sudden, impossible arrival. Alarms blared on the Chunchin. Hull breaches on decks 5 through 10. Drive Core 1 is failing. The foreign cores are reaching critical. Hannah ignored the damage reports. They were expected. She opened a wide broadcast channel, flooding every Imperial frequency. Galactic Empire! She shouted, her voice ringing across the void. You showed Earth no mercy. You thought we would wait to die. You were wrong. On the screens of 1,000 Imperial stations and ships, they saw the face of a young human woman, her hair floating in zero gravity, her eyes burning with fury. You burn our home? Then feel the heat of your own. She screamed. You take our future? We take yours. This is Earth's answer. This is our unmatched wrath. She turned to her engineer. Do it. The engineer, a man named Day, smiled a tired smile and punched the final command. The Chunchin did not explode. It imploded first. The 3 unstable drive cores, forced into overload, collapsed in on themselves. They created a tiny, hungry singularity for a fraction of a second. It swallowed the ship and all its munitions, and then it burst. The explosion was not fire and light. It was a rupture in space itself. A tear of pure, violent energy ripped outward from where the ship had been. It struck the surface of Gamma 7 directly above its main planetary forge. The beam drilled deep into the planet's crust. For a moment, nothing. Then Gamma 7 shuddered. The great factories, the furnaces, the foundries, all vanished as the planet's surface bulged upward and then erupted. A wave of fire and molten metal bloomed into space, consuming the orbiting shipyards, the half-built battleships, everything. The primary industrial heart of the Galactic Empire turned into an expanding cloud of radioactive dust and shattered dreams in the Sol system. The approaching Imperial fleets saw the data stream die. They received the final, terrifying broadcast from a human captain they had never seen before. They saw the feed from Gamma 7 go dark. They stopped their advance. On the bridge of his new flagship, Admiral Korvax received the report. He read the words, Foundry World Gamma 7 destroyed. Total loss. Cause, catastrophic core detonation. Source, unidentified human vessel. He slowly sat down in his command chair. He finally understood. Mercy was not a weakness they had avoided. It was a force they had never considered. And now they were facing the full, terrifying force of a people who had nothing left to lose but their rage. The humans had not just defended themselves. They had reached across the stars and punched the Empire in its heart. And the Empire, for the first time in 1,000 years, felt fear. The silence in the Sol system was now filled with a new tension. It was not the quiet before a storm. It was the hollow quiet after an earthquake, when the ground has stopped shaking, but nothing is stable. The 2 massive Imperial fleets hung at the edge of the system, near the ghost of Pluto. They did not move forward. Their orders were to glass the Earth. But new data had changed everything. On Earth, in the bunker, the mood was one of exhausted vigilance. They had seen the glorious, terrible fire of Gamma 7's destruction on their long-range scanners. They knew what Hannah and her crew had done. There was no cheering. There was only a deep, somber respect. They had lit a funeral pyre in the heart of the enemy, and its smoke was a signal the whole galaxy could see. General Tay did not relax. He watched the frozen fleets on the screen. They are confused, he said. Their doctrine has no answer for this. They understand surrender, and they understand annihilation. They do not understand a counterpunch that reaches across 100 light years. Jin stood beside him. The cold anger in his eyes had not faded, but it had hardened into something permanent, like stone. They will now try the third thing they understand. They will try to talk from a position of weakness, but they will not know how. Tay nodded. Prepare a channel. Broadcast it on all the frequencies they listen to. Audio only. No video. Let them listen to a voice in the dark. Soon, the message went out. It was Jin's voice, calm, clear, and utterly without warmth. Galactic Empire. This is Earth. You have seen our response at Gamma 7. You have witnessed the cost of your mercy. We have more ships. We have more volunteers. We have more fury. You can burn this world. But know this, if you do, the last act of humanity will be to ensure that every foundry, every shipyard, every core world of your empire burns with us. We will find them. We will reach them. We will destroy them. You have 1 hour to leave our system. After that, we will assume you have chosen mutual extinction. The message ended. In the Imperial fleets, the words were dissected. The threat was insane. It was impossible. But so was the destruction of Gamma 7. The humans had just proven the impossible was possible. Admiral Korvax, on his new flagship, felt a chill that had nothing to do with space. This was not a bluff. These creatures, when cornered, did not beg. They built bombs and aimed them at your home. A new signal came, not from Earth, but from the Imperial High Command. It was for Korvax. The grand strategist appeared, but the towering confidence was gone. He looked tired. The loss of Gamma 7 has paralyzed 5 frontline campaigns. Production has dropped by 40%. The political factions are in turmoil. We cannot sustain another such blow. Not from a pre-contact species. A delegation is being sent. You are to hold position. Do not engage. Do not provoke them further. Korvax was stunned. We are to negotiate? With these animals? We are to survive, the strategist snapped. Something you have failed to do twice. Hold your position. A small, unarmed Imperial shuttle, different from the warships, entered the Sol system. It moved slowly, with a blinking light of parley. It requested permission to land at a neutral site. Tay granted it. The site was the old lunar base. Now empty. Jin would go. Tay insisted on coming as well, in person. It was a risk, but symbols mattered. The old general and the diplomat boarded a shuttle of their own. They landed on the moon's dusty surface near the domes of the abandoned base. The Imperial shuttle door opened. Out came not a soldier, but a bureaucrat. His name was Vizier Kale. He was slender, dressed in elaborate gray robes, and he looked deeply uncomfortable in his spacesuit. Behind him came 2 guards, but their weapons were lowered inside a clear dome, overlooking the blue earth. The 2 parties faced each other. Kale spoke first, his translated voice trying for authority, but landing on anxiety. The Galactic Empire recognizes the unexpected resilience of your species. The incident at Gamma 7 was a tragic miscalculation. It was not a miscalculation, Jin said, his voice cutting through the thin air. It was a targeted strike. In response to your attack on our outpost at Pluto, you called it an incident. We call it murder. You started this. Kale shifted. The past is regrettable. We are here to discuss a cessation of hostilities. A ceasefire. Your system would be granted. Protectorate status. You would be left alone. General Tay, who had been silent, let out a short, dry laugh. It was a sound like rocks breaking. Left alone? After you murdered thousands and tried to exterminate us? You do not get to offer that. It is not yours to give. It is ours to take. Tay stepped forward, his old frame still imposing. Here are our terms. You will leave this system now. You will mark every star chart in your empire with a warning. This solar system is quarantined, not by your law, but by ours. Any imperial ship that enters the space between this star and the Oort cloud of comets that surrounds it will be destroyed. Not by us here, but by forces you will not see, who are already waiting among your other worlds. Kale's eyes widened. It was a breathtaking bluff. Or was it? The humans had proven they could strike far from home. The fear was real. You ask for us to retreat, Kale said. To show weakness. The Empire does not. The Empire showed its weakness when Gamma 7 exploded, Jin interrupted, his tone final. We are not asking. We are telling you the new rules. You showed Earth no mercy. In return, you have earned our permanent, unmatched suspicion. Our wrath is not a fleeting thing. It is now a foundation of our people. You inspired it. You must live with it, or die from it. The vizier was silent for a long time. He looked from Tay's unyielding face to Jin's cold eyes. He looked past them, at the beautiful blue planet hanging in the black sky. It looked peaceful. It looked fragile. He now knew it was neither. It was a nest of vipers that could somehow reach out and bite you on the other side of the galaxy. I must convey these terms, Kale said, his diplomatic pride gone. Convey this, Tay said. The war is over because we say it is over. Go home, lick your wounds, and pray you never give us a reason to look at you again. The meeting ended. The Imperial shuttle left the moon. The two fleets at the edge of the system powered their engines, turned slowly, and one by one, vanished into folds of light, retreating. Back on Earth, the news spread. The enemy was leaving. There were no wild celebrations. There was relief, deep and profound, but also a new, hard understanding. They had looked into the darkness and found a monster. To survive, they had to show the monster a reflection that was even more terrifying. Weeks later, Jin stood on a balcony, looking at the rebuilding city. Tay joined him, leaning on a cane. They will be back, Tay said. Not soon. Maybe in a generation. But they will. I know, Jin replied. So we must be ready. Not just with better weapons, but with the memory. The memory of what they did, and the memory of what we did in return. Tay nodded. We showed them our wrath. Now we must live with the people who are capable of that wrath. That is the harder task. On that day, Earth did not become a paradise of peace. It became a fortress of vigilance. The world united not just in fear of an enemy, but in the sober knowledge of its own power. They had learned a terrible lesson about the universe and about themselves. They had learned that mercy is a choice, and so is wrath. And having unleashed the latter to save themselves, they would forever bear its weight. The Galactic Empire would tell tales of the savage, unpredictable humans who could not be conquered, only provoked at a cost too great to bear. And Earth would tell its children a simpler story, that they lived because when pushed to the edge, they did not fall. They pushed back, harder than anyone thought possible. The galaxy would remember their wrath, but they would remember the price.